you know, suffering on a bike or suffering in sport when coaches tell you to do this, or it's a bad day and you just gotta suck it up. I mean, you know, and I think the society nowadays doesn't do it as much, but you just gotta suck it up, buttercup, and just send it.
Well, hello folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show or watching the show on YouTube. As many of you know, I've got a video version and an audio version, so all you folks that are regular listeners, I appreciate you coming back. And if you're new, welcome to the platform. If you want to reach out to me through the audio podcast, it's a little more difficult. On YouTube, you can leave a comment. If you're listening to the audio version, go to my website, DieterMelhornFishing.com. And there's a link to contact section there where you can hit me up, send me a message, send me an email. If you got some feedback, some ideas, I love hearing from you guys. A lot of the stuff we do here comes from those ideas I see on there. This also links to my guide service. I'm a licensed charter captain here in the Carolinas, so if you want to go fishing, you can actually go out and do some of the stuff you see in the YouTube videos that we do here on the channel. So all that, appreciate you checking it out. Hey, listen, today I've got an interesting guest. I did something different. I went up to film a striper fishing video up on the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia back in January. And while I was there, one of the guys that I was hanging out with striper fishing said, hey, there is a guy up here that makes custom reels. They are actually totally 100% made in the United States. And as most of y'all know, when you are in the catfish world, striper world, pretty much everything you buy is from China. It's made somewhere in Asia, and there are just not any American-made reels. And the biggest reason is it costs more money to make one in the United States. So that's the big drawback. But for those of you who are looking for something better, and I can tell you this, by looking at the way they make these things, we got to see the entire manufacturing process. It's pretty impressive. There's a reason it costs more, and one of them is the guarantee. And anyway, the guy's name is Wes Seigler. He interesting character. He's led an interesting life with everything that he's done and where he's at now with these reels and what they make. So without any more jibber jabber about any of that, let's let Wes do the talking. Give us your background, a real quick background on you. Where you from? Because you sound like you're from California. You got kind of a Cali cadence to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Born and raised there. Was a young kid, just way too much energy, sports. Played soccer. Went on through soccer world and went into college soccer. Fortunate to do that. Following that,
you were kind of a pretty good soccer player.
Yeah.
You're playing Division I soccer,
yeah,
right?
I went to Ohio State, so that was all right. And just one of my things was like my energy was just being funneled into that. School wasn't my thing, but the thing that transported me was the sport. Went to this cool school, got hurt, tore my ACL. Finishing up from the ACL injury, I realized it was like a reflection time, realizing that I'm not really where I was happy, I guess. Sports, when you've done it your whole life up to that point, which is a short part of your life nowadays, you look at it and you see now you can see how different things are affecting you. And I'm like, I don't really like doing this anymore. Where's the end of the road? Where are we going? So I came home to kind of recover my knee, and the coaches and that staff just said, hey, just take some time. And I came home and I started riding a bike with a friend just because my knee injury is like, hey, you got to get it recovered. And that led to, wow, this old guy just dropped me. And like, I am fit. I should be able to do this. I used all that time I'd trained and I put it into cycling. Shortly thereafter, and I went to one race, one thing, it worked out pretty well, and then went to another, and next thing you know, I'm racing at a high level, and then turned pro, and did the thing where I raced in Europe. It was good, had a good time there, met tons of people, learned a lot about myself, and learned about, it's a good part of life. It's, but you push yourself. Then there was a transitional time over there. There was this foot and mouth disease and it limited our racing in the Netherlands. So I came back to the States, raced out a couple years pro here, and then just was like done with it. I hit that moment of time when I was like, this is it. kind of tired. And so I left that world, and I just kind of always fished and just spent some time fishing. And then I went out and just decided to move out to the Chesapeake Bay, where my family had like a little summer house, and we just went out there and just started fishing from there.
Now, I'm going to stop you there for a second because I think you skipped over something. I think it's going to be important later. You tinkered with some bicycle parts while you were over there. Tell me just briefly a little bit about that. And by the way, folks, at home, if you're listening or watching, we're right next to a Naval Air Station, so you will hear jets fly over. We're just going to let them ride, baby. It's the sound of freedom.
That's it. Yeah, so there was a moment when I was racing, there was always this time that once you get to the pro level, you're getting a lot of test products and stuff that's new to the market, and they haven't hit the market. And it could be a shifter, it could be something that rattles. And I was always the guy like, you know, put a little of this here, or put a screw through this stem to keep it from rattling down when you hit cobblestones or something. Just anything I could do, like make it more comfortable, makes more sense to me. So as I was retiring out, I started like noticing frames and things and parts were just not right. I mean, you can buy them, but it wasn't what it could be. So I spent some time, and one of my trips over to tour Taiwan, I ended up getting toured through all these factories, and next thing you know, I'm like, my head is just spinning like, this is cool, you know, this is great. I mean, I wasn't an engineer, I'm not an engineer, I'm just a maker, but I like seeing people make stuff. And then you could see how you can make it better. So that point was when I started messing around in that world, and frames and bike components, making different products for people. It's still very niche-y, very high end. Loved it. You know, I was dealing with Taiwan a ton, and they're just like a piece of us. I mean, they always talk about like, hey, you know, you've got to, you know, they protect our IP, and we get our products good quality, incredible stuff. So I left that world, but it's still in me, you know, it's making.
It's probably a good introduction to the manufacturing process.
Absolutely, yeah. So I got to see as deep as I ever could want to see. They didn't like me to be on the floor when I was getting products made. They would always, I remember, they're just like, hey, Mr. West, please go to the office. You know, I'd be like, no, I want to be on the floor next to a machine. It didn't bother me to have my sleeves rolled up. So I learned a lot about seeing how the process was done and capabilities, from molds to, you know, just aluminum welding. I mean, there was a time when I'm there and a man was welding bottom brackets, and my bottom brackets on an aluminum bike would always snap about 4 inches up. It would just be a small line. Your bottom bracket would start creaking. It would happen roughly, 3 weeks after getting a pro bike. And I was at the factory, and I'm watching them weld, and they're welding them on a jig in front of them, and they're welding in this direction. And I'm thinking, man, the heat, it's got to be going up these triple tapered blah, blah, blah tubes from, you know, remember the names were like scandium and all this weird stuff. So I was like, what if we flip the frame upside down and you weld my bottom bracket, and the heat, we just put a hole in the bottom bracket, it just didn't matter, and the heat would go out. And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, let's just do it, you know? And they were like, okay. So then all of a sudden I made some aluminum frames that were like that, and it wouldn't break in the bottom bracket, which was cool. But you know, that kind of thing is like, why? I cannot stand for things just to continue to be the same way. Why? It doesn't make sense. So that was, yeah, there was a little place in there. I did some stuff. So when I was still running, making those parts and that stuff when I moved out on the bay. So that was keeping me busy business-wise. And then I was fishing a lot. And one thing led to another, and we were fishing, and we were trying to develop reels, make reels, and we had some problems with reels. And I remember the first time we had a problem with a reel, the first thing I did was I contacted an old sponsor. And
let me guess.
Yes.
Shimano.
Exactly. And it was the head of global marketing, which he's no longer there, but it's a great guy that actually just said it to me. And I remember I was on my way back from Asia from working with carbon fiber, and I said, man, I need some reels. And he said, what kind of wheels do you need? And I was like, no, dude, I need reels. Can you give me a pro deal? Can you give me some deal? Because these things are expensive. There's just like, I wanted them from like white marlin fishing or rock fishing or striper fishing, they call it, you know. And I was just like, oh. And they were like, man, just make your own. You know how to make stuff. And that part of it was interesting because, like, yeah, we knew that So the next trip I go back, I'm in the factory. I'm like, can we get some machine time to make a reel that I drew? And they looked at me and like, no. And they're very oriented, like this factory in Taichung, pretty much the whole city of Taichung is bicycles. They're not making fishing reels in a factory. They said you have to go to mainland. And I was like, oh, this is a nightmare. You know, because everybody goes, I mean, when you'd finish with a mold, they would destroy the mold before they would even, like they would destroy it and throw it in the trash because somebody would get it and refurbish it and send it to somebody that would keep making parts out of it. It was a lot of like, man, I heard don't go to mainland, don't go to mainland. Well, I ended up popping on a flight over and I was like, I don't even know how I found the stuff. Like it's crazy. Like I just I can't speak Chinese. I can't barely speak English, you know? Like I'm in a land that was pre-Olympics where they have no, you know, it's hieroglyphics to me, trying to figure a way around finding factories and just seeing what they could do and their capabilities. So I kind of found a place there and they started trying to make some stuff for me. And it was just all over the board, like control, quality, issues. I mean, there's just a lot of things. You could draw something and it wasn't exactly right. They would cut a corner or something. So it wasn't long into that. I probably produced about 200 reels from this Chinese factory. And then I started seeing parts that I designed, handles and et cetera, that were going to other companies. And I was like, that's exactly what the Taiwanese said they would do. And it's exactly what they did. At that point, I just kind of got pretty upset and angry about it and came back to the States, said, let's build some reels here. And
that's a major step because I mean, that's really the important part of this podcast. It's not easy to build a fishing reel. Where do you start when you decide I'm gonna build a fishing reel in America with nothing to do it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm just gonna tell anybody if they want to do it, but it's crazy. It's not the smartest thing to do. It will wear you out. But I think the biggest part in the design side is making something where you listen for the wish. You're trying to solve a problem. It's not from the ground, you know, you just take generations of knowledge of what people have gotten to the point they are, and then you're just going to make it as better. I mean, you're just trying to get it to be in the best period you can possibly make. And my goals in making stuff is simplicity is one. I cannot stand multiple tools in the operations. I can't stand having proprietary weirdnesses in products that I mess with. I cannot stand that. I wish it was just like everything should be the same fastener. If you need this size, use this size. I'm a big metric fan. Some people have even tried to call me out saying I'm a foreign maker of products because I use metric, but it's really because I have a real bad learning problem. And it's like when my numbers on my drawings go to 5.0, it's not 0.734974443. It's way easier. The metric system, I think it's way better for my world at least. But I did have that for a little while on the internet. Some people said that my parts were from Europe or somewhere, or Asia because of metric, but it's not that reason. But I also have had constraints. So basically you just want to go into something and design it to simplify it. I wanted it to be where people would take it apart themselves. I used everything from, I mean, anything. If it's a fastener in our reels, they're aluminum fasteners going in aluminum. And people in the beginning were like, are you crazy? That's dumb. They're going to snap off. I'm like, no. The reason why you're going to have galvanic corrosion. The reason why it snaps off is because they put it in and then it's sat on your boat and it has salt water get on it and then it's galvanic corrosion. Then you can't back it out and then you pop it. And the way you learn from that is you go down a boatyard and you look at the lower units on all the outboards and you see where a torch has had to go on them because there's dissimilar metal between those lower unit screws when they're changing the water pump.
So these were some problems you were solving because everybody says when you build something new, you got to solve a problem.
Exactly. So it's solving problems and simplicity. Then you have to think about the manufacturing side is whenever you make something, you have to make it simple and you've got to have, I'm limited by tools, people making it for me. So I had to get less parts. The first thing was like, when you take apart a reel and you have shims and washers and all this stuff, I'm like, I hate shims, I hate washers, I hate all that stuff. So it's like, get rid of all that and try to simplify it down, simplify operations, simplify the manufacturing process. But yet, You know, it was like our first mill. I mean, we tried to get some shops to make them. It was, yeah, it's just, I get why they didn't do it now. Then I was just angry. I was just like, come on, guys, give me a shot. Make this. We can sell them. I mean, I have guys come to me nowadays telling me they got the next greatest idea, and it's like, man, that's a long battle, man. I've been down a road like that, you know? But yeah, you start, when you start making it yourself, you realize how, I only have 10 tools, and one of my first machines had 10 tools. So I had to make this whole side of the operation with 10 tools. And then I was about, you know, every machine having the same tools. So I would never, as a, you know, design part, it was easier for my guys making it. And then I thought about parts. If I have to have one screw, why don't I just have 500 of this single style screw versus 500 of these, or 200 of these and 200 of these? You start doing that in inventory, it gets crazy. So I started with the SG, and I kind of like, that's probably the best place to go with a little bit of this, is that.
And that's a conventional reel.
Conventional reel. I started with that SG, and it was a small reel, and I was like, let's just put the biggest gear we can make in it. Let's get the best gear, let's get the best bearings. And I knew guys down in Hatters that threw, and Ryan White's him, and they always upgraded people's reels. So I said, let's get the best bearings. What do people buy? The fast speed for dropping or casting. And we just started doing that stuff. And one thing just kept leading to another, and it just ends up making this little teeny reel that was pretty tough. And you know, it's hard. It was a hard sell at first. I mean, it's hard to believe it's almost 15 years old. There's been evolutions of it, but the one thing about my evolutions that sometimes people think we're not changing or updating, I try never to make a reel where it's like buying your iPhone, let's say 11, and then in 2 weeks they come out with 11 Plus Pro, and you're like, or just recently it happened to me. I had a boat and have a 400R on it, and like literally the month after I did it, they put a new cowling on it. Now, I didn't like the new cowling at the day. I thought my old cowling looked better, but then very quickly I liked the new cowling better on the motor, and it dates your product really quick. So I kind of always believe in keeping it simple. Evolutions are very small. You can't see them. There is improvements in them if they're lighter. Maybe we found something with a crank arm, etc. But we just try to do everything so it's built to last. You know, that's the biggest thing, is that we want it to last. We want it to be, you don't mind holding it. It feels right to you. It's a tool.
And that's an important point, and I want you to clarify what it takes to do that, because a lot of people who, you know, watch or listen to my podcast are going to be buying the Ming Yangs, the Ancient Mariners, the Mad Cats that are rebranded from a Ming Yang or a Soong Lang, which I can't even pronounce. I never pronounced it wrong. What's I mean, in layman's terms, but somewhat technical terms, why don't they make stuff that good, and why is yours that much better?
Yeah, yeah, and I would say the big thing would be, right off the get-go, is like, people always say, hey, I use certified XYZ material, right? I mean, you hear people, everybody goes, this is aerospace aluminum, and I'm always just kind of laugh at that, because it means, the aerospace means nothing. It's to mean, I don't want to be ugly about it, but it's kind of a joke to me, and I always laugh. It's like, we always in our booth like laughing, like, oh man, he just said aerospace. Like, yeah, we pick up our fishing reel, throw it, it's an aerospace now, right? You know, it's a grade of aluminum, and in America, you can't go, hey, can you give me the kind of cheap, crappy stuff? I mean, you know, you say, hey, I want T6, you know, 6061 T6 aluminum. Now you can go, hey, I want import. It's still in that grade. And then you can go, hey, I want US grade, or like Kaiser. Or then you can say, hey, I want Kaiser Ultra Select that. Now, those are differences. And in the machine world or in the making world, you can see a difference. Now, the difference in cost is quite a bit. You know, you could have an import aluminum versus that. It meets the standards, but there's a big difference. Now, when you go overseas, almost all fishing reels manufacturers are probably foundries, which a foundry is kind of like you pour stuff in stuff. You don't really know the mixture combinations. They're not making inserts. So you can actually just write any. I mean, we got a laser in the other room. We can go laser anything. If we want to say it's 24 karat gold and put it on it, we could say it's 24 karat gold and paint it gold, you know, and half the people probably believe us, you know, and that's kind of what's going on. So I think the next thing is all the small stuff. Maybe they blanket. They can make one thing, and then they change out small features, and they know how to do it very well. They have a skill set, and Asian manufacturers know that, and they can get the mass volume, have 10 vendors, and they can configure it different 10 ways. So they're making, and they're going to cut whatever corners they can to make it better. And your prints aren't your print. I mean, they are, but they're not.
I've heard that from so many people, not just in the real world, but the rod world, the catfish rods that are made over there. They will screw over anybody to make a buck.
That's it. I mean, so that, and then like, what is counterfeit? What is real? What's quality? I mean, can we really tell, like metallurgy? Can we really go there? Well, when we're buying a certain material, if we could take the exact same material, if it was a call out for military, for aerospace, for whatever, we could use that same material and that sheet of paper and make whatever they needed. Can the others? No. Now, that's fine. The next thing is all the little small features inside of a reel, the configurations, the bearings. You start going to that level, then you go to the gears, and why some gears feel different than the others. It just keeps going. And the one thing I think I probably have, I fixate on things like that, like how deep can we go, how good can we make it. So, yeah. The gears, you go, hey, 3/16 stainless. They don't feel as good as a brass gear or a plastic gear, I can tell you that. But, we've gone down a line of where we make them, and it's, and then all of a sudden we'll throw them in a tumbler now in corn cobs for days. I'm talking days. Like, we actually forget about them. We're like, who cares? Let's buy these certain little like polishers, and we just leave them in there. We're like, when we need them, they're just in there just keeping warm, but they make them so much smoother. But we learn that later because we don't get gears back ruined. We don't get stripped gears. I don't think we have a main gear ever been stripped. I mean, we have something where something fell in it, like a clip might have come off from something, fell down there and marred a gear. But like our thrust plates and our turned stainless that are like shaped, I shape them so that they actually have strength and they don't get warped. Carbon fiber washers, I mean, we get it from Smooths because I don't feel like dealing with a lot of I just have to burn it in my laser sheets of it. But then we grease our drag washers, and we don't just use a certain level of grease. We use Tough Gel, and there's 2 different levels of that. And when somebody tries to buy a little syringe of it, and you see it for like almost, I don't know, nowadays it's probably $40 for a little syringe. And it's the only grease that's certified by the military, and a lot of, there's like a lot of boat people that have learned this. And if you want to have a lower unit and you want your bolts to come out, use Tough Gel on them. All my guides have learned that. Yeah. From the grease. They're like, would that work? I'm like, yeah, use the thick, the thick on those bolts. And then that's their pitch, man. They're like, we learned about Wes, about this, and know how thought through these reels are. And I use it even in boat stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, it's always listening. It's always simplifying, always improving the process.
Now, you made a segue into fly fishing reels, which is, as you said, out of your wheelhouse. What problem were you solving there?
Well, that was really the big problem. No, like me personally, I just went on a trip with a friend. I was not a fly fisherman. I saltwater fished. I just kind of did that thing, and he said, hey, let's go. Let's do this. And I was like, whoa, this is all the way around the world. Most people go to some local place to learn. I learned over, a year of how to cast this thing, but I knew we were going after these things called GTs. I'd get to this place. I'm in Seychelles. I went to Alphonse. Oh my gosh! I mean, if you're coming from a conventional world of spin fishing or anything, and just jigging and stuff, this place is like, it's Jurassic Park. You got set into. Now I'm just holding a wand with this feather, and I'm like, okay, but my eyes are jumping out of my head. It's stuff probably the only place is probably earlier days Tropic Star stuff, down in Panama. Like this stuff, you just blows your mind. Everything. And so I have this fly rod, and they got guides, and they walk with you. And I'm like, I don't need a guy walking with me. I can tie my own. I can tie my leaders. I know how to tie knots. I wasn't that I mean, I was like trying to probably get a tan when I was there, and these guys are like look like ninjas. I mean, totally different clash of worlds. But then I stuck a fish, and I was like, man, this is insane, because it's more connected. It's a little more dialed, but there was something that was, I had all borrowed equipment, or had equipment that I got before I went, and it was really good stuff. A friend gave me advice, and I took it. And from there, I realized it just couldn't handle it. I mean, and there was weird issues. Like, we were popping off fish, and couldn't stop fish. We had to palm them. You see people doing that. And I was like, this is dumb. I was like, we make all this power in these little teeny SGs and LGs. They can stop little tunas. They can stop, like, all kinds of stuff. Groupers. I mean, this is a fish that's not that bad to the bone. So,
I had nobody done that in a fly fishing. It's not like they're just fishing for trout. You're catching tarpon and bull reds, and people are fishing for marlin with this.
Yeah, and then like it's crazy, because it's like, I always kind of say to some of my friends around this industry, like, I'm like, everybody's like a bunch of mullet. They just stay in school. And they're like, man, I'm not going to leave the school, because, man, I'm not going to do anything different, because it could, it might not be right. It's like, oh no, I'm just going to hang out with you. I might be a little faster than you, and that's all I need to be. And I think that's the world. They're mullet. And we definitely are not mullet. We were kind of freak fish, and we're over here, and we're like, and I was watching a guy that had a bunch of world records, and he was like, pop. And I'm like, you just broke off another of these bluefin trevally, like his big-eye trevally, actually, out the back of a boat one evening. And I was just down there, like, having a drink, watching him, and I'm like, do you put lotion on your hands? He looks at me and goes, what? I'm like, how do you keep it smooth? Because, like, if you come from the air world, of like the conventional world, like, you put drag on, you do not drag your thumb a little bit. You let the drag do it. You let the drag do everything, and you want it to be super smooth. And we knew that from our other world. So this guy was like, huh? I know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay. You tell the captain that when you're in the cockpit of a sport fish, that you know what you're doing, dragging your thumb on the edge of the spool to get a little more tension, to slow down something trying to go 40 miles an hour that way. You're going to pop him off, and then they're going to yell at you. So no, you don't know what you're talking about. And then right then, a guide looked at me, and his name's Lou. We'll stop with that with a break. Lou, let's just say Lou. And he is a South African. And so the moment that the guide walked up and goes, I see your hat, and it said truth. He goes, why don't you just make a reel? I'm like, I got too much on my plate. I don't need to do this fly stuff. This is weird. And he's like, make your own reel. He goes, those reels you brought are not going to survive tomorrow, because it was like we were really going after some bigger stuff. And he was absolutely right. He said what was going to happen, and it happened. So that evening, I took the reels apart, worked on them, and I knew exactly, right when I got in them, I was like, wow, it's hard to get into, which I thought was incredibly dumb. Why make these things hard to fix when you're in a remote island halfway around the world? And I got in there, and I see the problem, and I'm like, oh no, this guy's not doing it right at all. So I told him, I was like, yeah, I got to make a reel. So I came home, just was blown away about the trip. And then somebody else said, hey, are you going to make a reel? And I said, I don't know. So I made one, and that made me have to go back. So I had to go back with my own homemade reels, which was a little bit of anxiety. I mean, it's sweating bullets. Everybody's looking at you. All the guys are fired up, because I brought these levers. And I remember the first Jeet we got. I mean, it was quick. It was just like right then, boom. We stuck the Jeet so hard. We were holding him in like 3 minutes. And then we were like, this is easy with their drag. We broke the rod, because I wasn't fighting the fish the way that I should have with that amount of pressure. But it was one of those things. Like, all of a sudden, it proved theory. I made sure that I listened to the guides before during the process. It was like, make it serviceable, so when you're away on a trip, they can't get extra gear when they're away. Make it durable. It doesn't matter how light it is. If it bends or breaks, it ruins somebody's trip, and then just make the drag smooth. And so what I did was I brought the lever mindset of control of it's like a handbrake on a car, pretty much. You can actually apply the amount of maximum pressure you want. You can actually go more pressure or less pressure. It's like a governor. And that was something that was not known. They just screw, it's more like star drag fishing. You keep screwing it until you get to the place.
Talking about the star drag, you mentioned that. Is there room in your world to build something at a price point it's not going to be cheap, obviously, but it's going to be tremendous quality. It's going to kick the butt of the Abus out there and stuff that are in that higher end, round reel. Look, can you do a level line? Can you do something with star drag that would appeal to the catfish world, striper fishing guys? What's your take on that?
No, I mean, I think catfishing and more catfishing probably in my mindset is a neglected world because they do need a little bigger reel than like a bass reel. I mean, you can use bass reels, but it's always something we played with. I mean, we do have a surf casting reel that was just built to handle really sharks and rays while you're trying to catch drum, because you have to deal with sharks and rays to catch drum. But yet, one of my dear friends is this cast guy that, you know, I want to make sure you can go to a competition and throw it on a field while it still could be turned around, put it in the truck, and let's go down to Outer Banks and fish it again without changing a lot or doing anything special. I mean, we put mags on them, these big adjustables, like tournament style mags for the surf guys. That reel is a special reel. It's still to this day the most weird reel, but yet functionally it did some crazy stuff that like made so much power. If you liked it, you loved it. If you didn't, you hated it. To me, there was a lot of things. I had to build this reel with limited time on machines, and I couldn't use certain machines. Was completely at capacity. So that's the reason the shape came the way it was. It was a little different looking. Yes, I am. Right now, everybody knows that I'm making a lot more fly reels and less conventional just because of just time. There has been some slight SG, LG changes in LG narrow like tunes I've made to the reels. People see the sides of the main cases. But the next reel that I have it drawn, I have it like just waiting for a window of, hey, we've got a little window here. Let's go have some fun, make a limited batch of those SMs again. It's on a different platform, like different look. So that'll be a fun one. To me, that's a crew of people that have believed in us. I mean, our owners club is just like crazy awesome. They know we care. We take care of them. But this is a freak. It's a freak zone. Like it's like, man, it's like wide open, and they love to throw a big weight. So can that enter into the catfish? Yeah, absolutely. It would go right there. You know, it'd be a lot less capacity you need. You just need to tune it down a little bit in size. And I think what a lot of people are going to see from us in the near future is you're going to see limited batch conventional reel releases where I might say, hey, I'm going to build up 200 of these, and they're going to hit it, and there are going to be some major changes in them. And then that's how many I'm making, and then there'll be something else coming. And there's stuff from the SM is on deck. A normal star drag is on deck. There is a big reel on deck. So,
but if you ever entertain a level line, could you lower yourself to the not thumbing that line across the spool back and forth?
I like to figure out how to like eliminate that altogether, but like, it's like
how to make stuff better. That is a space right there. That is the weak link in any of those reels.
And it is a fine mechanism that if someone takes it to a fast species, it's going to break. And when it breaks, your reel's done. You can't crank them in, just pile it all up. So to me, that's the only reason why I don't like a level one. It's absolutely, and I'll tell you, it's just like one more gizmo that could break. And my person, I'd rather have no cup holders in a car and nothing else but like a steering wheel and a shifter or something like that. Yes, that's all I want. I mean, you don't need a speedometer, you need a tack or something. That's me. But so adding a cup holder is kind of like, but I get it. So it's like, how do I not make a cup holder, but have a cup holder to hold a cup, right? You know? So that's probably that world. And once you start getting small reels, the hardest part is that for castability is getting the weight of the spool down. And and making aluminum spools and in that world, in our world of machining them, it gets pretty tricky to get them really light, because that's what allows the start up, and that's what gives backlash and stuff. So, you know, it's interesting because, man, bass guides in that world, man, they lock them down. I mean, they like literally have no drag, and they just like pick the fish right out the water. So it's like, you know, it's interesting, like when you get to see all the different species. But I do think catfish is a species, conventional or fly, that's a neglected species that everybody can fish for. I don't care. I think every state in the country you could go catch catfish, and they pull hard. Kid on staff.
And they can get big.
Yeah, they can get real big. And if you go internationally, they get even bigger, I learned, you know. So yeah, there's a kid on staff that loves carp fishing. And it's because he couldn't get around to other places, so he just had these ponds. And when I saw him fishing for him, he's pretty much permit fishing for fish that have big shoulders that can haul flats, and it's sight casting, and he was having to be a ninja to pull it off to get them, and that was like super cool to see. So it's just pushing the limits, you know. And so to me, yeah, I definitely think there's space.
Well, how many other players are there in America that build stuff here in America? How many are there like you?
In flies, probably more than in conventional, and it's usually a side business, you know, more than anything. You know, they built their machining businesses, and we came from machining, making reels, and that's it. That's the only thing we know. Now we know machining tolerances, we know all that stuff because we learned it, but we didn't make something else. It's not like, hey, it's like our belt buckles are their fishing reels. You know, or our shot glasses are their fishing reels. And so for us, it's our only thing. And yeah, I mean, and fly, I mean, and that's another thing. It's like, how much is made here? I mean, there's rules. There's like, and I've heard that at trade shows, people come up to me and go, oh, it needs to be like 60%, man. It's all good. You should kick that over here. And I'm like, it makes the hair like on my back of my head come lit up. Like now I'm like in an anger moment with that person. Like, what? Because it's not as straight, you know. Like
what you're talking about is a percentage of it can come from somewhere else, and it still be American made.
I mean, and then American made, and then we're very easily see the designed in California, made wherever.
American assembled.
Yeah, American assembled. Or I mean, and one thing that I mean, we design it here. Well, actually, we don't design. Well, we do design it here, but we get the information, what we need to design. Always when we're hanging out fishing with our friends or doing anything with our friends, it doesn't matter. I mean, and then you're hanging out and all of a sudden you see a problem, and then that's when it starts. And then it comes into the shop, and then it starts getting drawn up using our, you know, the skills that we have, and we just draw it, come up with an idea, maybe print it in like a 3D model, and then from there think about, hey, could this really work? And then we already know the solution. I mean, that's the fun part is like, if you're used to this stuff, you know, you're like, oh, this is going to totally work, you know? And then you just take it into the form of like, make a prototype, and we do it all in this shop. I mean, that's the side of it where we've had lots of sales guys over the years come to the shop, and they'll come and go, man, can I drive a forklift? And we're like, back in the day, when we have a forklift now, we didn't have a forklift. And we were like, yeah, you can drive it all day long. Walk around the shop with your two big arms. And then people actually see the door open in the back, and I feel like it's the moment on cribs, like when they go in the bedroom. Yeah. I swear to you, it's like that. I don't know.
Music stuff.
Yeah, it's like, bounce, bounce. And you're like, when you open the door, you're like, this is Crib's bedroom right here. Because then people are like, whoa, whoa. I mean, we have a lot of military contractors. We have a lot of people around this area. We're fortunate for all we got around here, and when they walk in the back of our shop, they realize what we do and how we do it. And it's not been like, hey, bam, snap my fingers and we had all these machines. It's been, you know, buying used machines, fixing them up, keeping them around. You know, we have some couple really cool machines too. I mean, we got a lot of cool machines, but some of them.
A scary moment in this. I mean, it's like you've had a charmed life. You know, you're playing college sports, pro bike racing. You're here fishing off a big boat. Have you had an oh crap moment in this business? I mean, most everybody does. Was COVID good or bad? What's kind of, yeah.
I mean, this whole business has been, anything in life has been, you work hard enough, you get it. Anything. I mean, from sports, it's just the way it worked. I mean, you work hard enough, you get it. This world has been hard. It's been real hard. Like, the hardest thing I've ever taken on. Like, where I'm just like, I can't do it. Because you can't, in who I am, I'm not going to call somebody out. They know if they're doing right or wrong. If my competitor's doing it and they aren't doing it and they're saying they're doing it, I'm not going to be the one to call them out. And I'm not going to talk about it like that. And I'm not going to brag on if I've got legends using my stuff. I'm not going to sit around and put them on, and just say, hey, so-and-so is loves my stuff and he uses it all the time. I'm not going to do that. Like, I mean, I don't want to, for me, it's like, it's a product. We make it. We do it right. We stand behind it. You believe in me. I believe in you. But, yeah, this business has been the hardest thing ever. Dynamics, to make it here, to sell it, to make one thing and then to sell it, and it's not a true statistic comparison. Like, I grew up in the Motor Trend car magazine where you say the Camaro did this or a Mustang did this. You basically go down the line and go, quarter mile, he won. 0 to 60, he did this. I mean, it's straight up numbers. That weighs that much. It could make a G in a corner. Whatever it was, you could go, this one's better. And I mean, Russell at one trade show, we lost something, and he goes, what are they comparing? Like, what are they comparing? This isn't fair. And inside that burns you. Yeah. But you just got to suck it up and just go, you know what? They don't even know.
Well, how much did your experience in college sports, pro sports prepare you for all that?
I think it's everything. I said to one of my early guys, advisors, I consider him a friend. I mean, he told me, I was on a boat with him fishing. I was like, man, I wish I never did all that. I wish I went straight into this and just really put my energy when I was really hot. Like, he goes, no way, dude. He said, now that's why you can fight through, because you suffered so much. I mean, suffering on a bike or suffering in sport when coaches tell you to do this or it's a bad day and you just got to suck it up. I mean, and I think the society nowadays doesn't do it as much, but you just got to suck it up, buttercup, and just send it, and just keep doing it and it'll work out. I mean, it's always a challenge, but there's so many dynamics to business and making. It is different. So, yeah, it's a journey, that's for sure, and it's not over.
Well, there you go, guys. The one thing I love about Wes was I didn't have to talk a lot. He's one of those guys that will go on and on. He loves what he does. He is eat up with it. He's into it. He's like me when I get to talking about fishing. It was funny. It was almost hard to get the podcast started because we had to stop him for a minute to kind of reset. Great guy, great energy. He is as fun to be around and as energetic in person as he appears online. And I want to thank his wife for setting everything up and making all that stuff happen, putting up with us up there for a while we were roaming around the place, and for letting him be late for his conference call because he was taping our podcast. So I appreciate you making all that happen, and hope you guys enjoyed that. Check them out. I'll put a link to the website down in the description where you can check out their company, the Reels, and maybe it's something you can go with. But it should give you some perspective on why things cost the way they do and why so few reels are made in the U.S. But if you ever get your hands on one of these, I got to fish with one while we were doing some of the striper fishing up there. There's no comparison in the build quality in these things. Price is more, no doubt about that, but that's the way it works in not only this space, but other spaces out through there. Sometimes if you want quality, you're going to have to pay more for it. So hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you guys out on the water.